boom. Show you something interesting here too for equity markets. So what's been pulling back equities so much as well is the Mag 7 stocks have been underperforming, right? So Nvidia has been nuking hard. Tesla, Microsoft, Google, Meta, all these companies have been nuking pretty hard off of this downturn in equities. And so there's a good piece of alpha in this chart that I'm going to show you, this pair chart, to let you know how equities are going to perform, okay? So down below, you have the QQQ index, right? This is how QQQ looks right now. So you get your bottom here during the bear market in 2022. You got your top here in 2021, right? And then we topped out in February 25, and we've been nuking ever since, okay? And first top was in December 10th. This is when altcoins topped out in crypto. Okay, so we've been nuking ever since. This chart, QQQ, the complete inverse of it is just QQQ minus the Mag 7, okay? So Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, Tesla, Amazon, Google, Meta. So you take QQQ minus those 7 major, right, assets out of the index, and you see it's literally just the inverse chart. So what's the alpha in this? So anytime this chart is in a downtrend, this index is pumping and equities are pumping, okay? Why is that? Well, that means that QQQ minus the sum of those 7 assets is coming lower. Why? Well, then that means that the assets within these parentheses, the value of these 7 assets are going up in comparison to the QQQ index. So if you're subtracting by a larger number, this chart's going to come down. So that means that those 7 assets weighted against the rest of the index were getting more value compared to every other company. That means they were pumping hard than all the other companies. When this chart comes higher, that means that these 7 assets within the parentheses are coming down in value relative to the full index. They're underperforming. Well, so you get a pump here. What do you see here on the index? You get a dump. So that's really interesting because that shows you how much Nvidia, Microsoft, Tesla, Apple, all these companies matter to these major index and equities, because when they underperform, the rest of the market underperforms because they're so much more weighted compared to all these other companies that if their market caps are nuking, the rest of the indices, the rest of the equity markets are nuking. So it's interesting to know that, because when you now look at something like Nvidia, right? So I'm giving you guys fucking alpha right now. Let's see. Let's leave that. Let's look at Nvidia, right? Oops, the fuck was that? You see what happened to Nvidia. You see how it's been coming, nuking off of the highs. Nvidia looks like it's going to come back down lower again. But if we can get it to stop out in this demand region right here and start bottoming and start moving back up higher, then we're good. But the reason that this is important, that something like Nvidia is nuking, is because down below, if we put, QQQ, or we could even put, we can put QQQ. Okay. You see how it looks similar to the Nvidia chart, right? So Nvidia is performing well, so is QQQ. Nvidia is underperforming, doing poorly, so is QQQ. So you want these Mag 7 to perform well and understand what's happening with Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, the race with AI, what's going on with these chips. The tariffs are preventing from certain chips from coming into the country, all this bullshit that's going on. To take away a lot of the noise, you just got to say, okay, well, are we in an environment where Nvidia is going to perform well, right? Because this has been our risk-on indicator in equities. Well, if Nvidia is close to bottoming, then that means equities and crypto and those assets should be close to bottoming, okay? So again, it's another piece of confluence. Why do I think it's close to bottoming? Well, if we start turning around, you're going to see this one more stab down below for Nvidia. That's why I still see some local volatility to the downside still. But if you can hold this demand region, okay, hold this demand and start to bottom and come back up higher, bottom's in. We're good. If we lose this level on Nvidia, so I'm giving this to you to watch. If we lose this demand on Nvidia, you're kind of fucking cooked. Because look, the only other piece of market structure that could kind of save you would be like a stab into here. Like that would be your only other hope, would be you get caught by this little piece of market structure. If you don't get caught by that, I mean, yeah, you're looking at your recession that we were talking about. Because this on Nvidia is a very inefficient move, right? There's no market structure. There's no consolidation. There's no demand buildup. It's just straight up. So once you lose this demand, you lose these levels, this only bit of market structure, you're coming all the way back down into here on Nvidia. You're coming into this region right here, which is much lower, much lower. So I'm watching this saying, okay, like this is do or die. This is either we hold these exact levels and we run it back fucking turbo, or if you lose these levels, it is cooked. Like that's just what it is. Okay. So that's the way I'm looking at it, is this is do or die. Okay. This is your very last piece of market structure support in here. Otherwise you're coming down and you're getting fucking cooked. Okay.